VR is the next big thing for gaming, with the HTC Vive and Oculus Rift leading the way for PC gaming enthusiasts. The problem is though, PC gaming itself is a very expensive hobby without adding the additional cost of a VR headset into the mix. So I challenged myself, could I build an above recommended spec PC capable of passing the Steam VR benchmark all for under $1,000 Aussie dollars? Well, the answer is yes, of course I can. Introducing Dark Reality, the $940 PC that is going to smash that VR benchmark out of the park, made entirely from second-hand parts. Now I know some people cringe when second-hand parts are mentioned, but trust me, follow these guidelines and you will be safe. Always purchase using PayPal and pay for the items under goods and services, not family and friends. That'll protect you if any item is damaged or faulty, and if the deal feels off or dodgy, don't be afraid to walk away. Try to get as many photos of the item as possible, and even better, proof of the actual item functioning. Facebook groups are great for finding people undervaluing their components, so join as many as you can. When buying from eBay, make use of sellers who allow a best offer option and lowball the crap out of the item to begin with, as you have 3 best offer chances to try and get a better price, and always do your research of every single component you wish to buy to make sure it is compatible and that there are no common factory faults with the said item. Now that's out of the way, let's discuss the guidelines and rules I set myself for this build. Rule 1 was all parts must be second hand. Number 2 was it must be able to run all games, which meant no dual core CPU, as Far Cry refuses to load using any dual cores that aren't hyper-threaded. Number 3 was it must be able to record and render gameplay in 1080p at 60 FPS with reasonable quality settings. And finally, rule number 4 was I could not purchase anything from a friend or acquaintance who may provide me with an unrealistic market price that isn't available to everyone. So that's the rules I set myself to achieve this build. Now let's start talking about the components and pricing. First up is the CPU, which is an i5 4690K clocked at 3.5 GHz with a turbo of 3.9, but has the ability to be overclocked with the MSI Z97M G43 Micro ATX motherboard I scored in a combo deal for $350. What a deal. To overclock that CPU and keep decent temperatures, I managed to find the Antec Cooler 1250 for $100, and I must say this 240mm liquid cooler really impressed me. For the graphics card, I picked up a 4GB Gigabyte R9 290X with its base clock coming factory overclocked to 1040MHz, and its 3-fan cooling system make it an awesome GPU with room to overclock, which only cost me $250. RAM is up next, where I got 2 4GB sticks of G-Skill Enquiries memory rated at a nice and quick 2133MHz, once overclocked for just $40. The motherboard has an M.2 slot located in between some PCI slots, so I decided for my main drive I would get a Samsung 128GB M.2 SSD, which boots up blazingly quick for $50. For bulk storage, I picked up a 1TB Seagate Barracuda 7200 RPM drive for just $30. To power everything is the Fractal Design 550W Integra semi-modular power supply, which may seem a little weak for a system this power hungry, but managed it fine, all for just $50. The case of Thermaltake Core V21 micro enclosure, which has a fairly unique layout, which you will see a bit later on, but also sports a very nice big side panel window and supports our 240mm cooler with ease for $70. Adding all that up, if you haven't already, is $940, which I must say isn't bad at all for the performance this PC provides, especially compared to something that costs the same brand new. So that's how Dark Reality came about, and now you've seen all the parts, it's time to watch me put it together in an awesome time lapse. I don't own a lot of modern gaming titles, but the games I did benchmark had the settings cranked to the max, and the test will run at both stock clock speeds and a slight overclock of 80 MHz to the core and 50 on the memory for the GPU. If you see any FPS numbers you don't like, all you'd have to do is turn down a few unnecessary settings like AA. I also edited up some Battlefield 4 gameplay to serve as a render test to mimic what a typical gamer might want to render and upload to YouTube, and how quick this computer could pump it out at stock clock speeds and with an overclock of 4.6 GHz at 1.29 volts stable on the CPU, with the RAM clocked at 2133 MHz. The full render test video is linked in the description, and in the description of that video is the render times and links to all the other computers I've built. The CPU also went through a Cinebench R15 test at both stock clock speeds and overclocked. The highest temperature the CPU hit was 46 degrees under an AUD stress test and 61 whilst overclocked. The GPU was originally tapping out at 83 degrees Celsius, but after creating a custom fan curve for it, the highest temperature I saw was 71 at stock and 76 with the overclock under a Furmark stress test. In conclusion, VR is expensive as it is, with the HTC Vive and Oculus Rift costing somewhere in the vicinity of $1,000 each. In Australia, there is no need for the computer to also cost you an arm and a leg to enjoy some great in-home entertainment with family or friends, or simply enjoying it by yourself. $1,000 does seem like a lot for a VR-capable computer, but think of how much these parts would cost new, and with the savings on those parts could put you on the right track to being able to afford a VR headset of your very own. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if you really enjoyed it, please consider subscribing for more PC builds and other content in the future. If you have a suggestion, question or criticism, feel free to leave a comment, and thank you very much for watching.